If you order something not for those people that call Pesach, not for those who are counted on the animal, so for somebody who can't eat a kizayas. Let's go down to the Peirush, meaning for a person who's not a member, or one of the people that are members, but he cannot eat a kizayas, or he's ordered it for people that weren't circumcised, or not eat from the Pesach, even if they wish. Or people that are told when the korban is brought the tahara is possible. Now, where do we learn that it have to be the people that are counted on the korban? So 61a, it says in the number of the count of the people, they shall be counted on the sheep. Now the posuk says twice, count, they shall be numbered to tell you that without it doesn't work. If shochtoi, one group, for somebody who can eat it, and somebody that can't eat, or so those that are counted and those that were not counted, or lemulin, those that have a bris, and those that are uncircumcised, the toirim ulatmeim, some of the group was torah, some was tmeim. It's kosher. Because those that can eat it are doing so properly. The other ones is as if he didn't think about them. And in the case of Mishnah cites Makor, this is in Sochem 61a. Yomam 62b, questions. Why? When he thought to do it, those that were counted, a number of them, to eat is not eat kosher. We know by other offerings that once you have intention of somebody who owns the animal, it's possible. Technically, somebody who can't eat from it is like somebody who doesn't own it. So the answer is that usually when you say do it for the owner and somebody who's not the owner, because he comes to play here. You can't verify which is which. Rashi explains that you can't verify which part was done for who. Therefore it's possible. But when he does it for those who can eat it and who cannot eat it, ultimately those that can eat it, but to those who are going to eat it and not eat it, you can clarify the Isser. You can clarify who are those that are worthy to eat it, who are healthy, and the part that are not, these old, elderly, the sick, are on the other side, and therefore it's kosher. Another explanation Rashi gives us is when he thought about eating it for those who eat it and those who don't eat it, you can verify his thoughts if there's any validity to it. It'll give it to those who eat it, and therefore it's fine. But when he does it for a person to eat who is the owner, not the owner, you can't say, well, we'll give some of it to the person who's not the owner, because he has nothing to do with the korban. Korkis explains that the Rambam wants to understands the logic like the second explanation of Rashi, but it says that those who can eat it, la halacha, and those who cannot eat it, he did not think about them. It means that the others that are not able to eat it is gone; they're out of the picture. Therefore, the korban is kosher. And so we find also in the Shalos Teshuvos Yontiv. This is the concept, this is the logic of the Rambam, that since there has to be those who are counted on the korban, therefore, somebody who is not worthy of eating from the korban Pesach is as if he's not counted on it, and therefore he doesn't upset the situation, which is different than other korbanos where there's only one person who owns it, and if you do it for two people, then the other person who was not on it, who was not the owner, would negate the bringing of the offering properly. So Likuti Alochis, the Rebbe Chaim disagrees with the Ma'ikukas, and his understanding of the Rambam is like the first Peirush. The Pesach is kosher because you can verify who's going to eat it. The logic that not for those who are counted makes it possible is only by Korban Pesach. It doesn't work by other Korbanos. Because by Kochin there's a din of Shinu Balam, not for the proper owner. That nullifies a Korban, any offering, except for Pesach. And we have a Psak Halacha, the Rambam codifies in Hilchos Chametz that all the offerings the Kohen thought for someone else, not for the proper owner, or not for the proper purpose, for which the Korban is supposed to be brought, and he did so by one of the four parts of the offering, which is the slaughtering, the receiving of the dam, the moving the dam to the mizbeach, or spraying the dam. The offering is kosher and can be eaten, but the owners have to bring another one because it wasn't done for their purpose. And why by Korban Pesach, when you do it not for, specifically only for somebody that who was not counted on it, then it's possible, and you can't eat it even when everything else can be eaten, as we just mentioned. Furthermore, when you slaughter the Korban Pesach, not for those who are not counted, what's the novelty about it? We have to learn from a posuk. It's not the owner, and if he's not the owner, then obviously the korban is possible because it wasn't done for the ownership. It would seem that Rashi had this question in Psochem 61a. And Rashi says that the idea of changing of the ownership that nullifies is by other offerings only with regard to the spraying of the dam. Because to the spraying of the dam, you get the kapara for the person who was the owner of the korban. But by shchita, kabola, vaylocha, by slaughtering, receiving, and moving the blood, there's no mapsul machshava, except for which has to do with pigul or shalayim koimoi. But if he thought at the time of shchita that it should be for others, and the zrika should be done for the owners, the korban is kosher, because the zrika finalizes the atonement of the korban. In Pesach, there's a special rule that it's possible to change of ownership, meaning not for its registered group, even by the shchita. That's the chiddush, that even by the shchita it is also possible. The Keren Eure cites that the Rambam is of the opinion that the machshava of change of ownership disqualifies in all four malachas, because it says in Psule HaMikdoshim, any of the offerings, the korbanos that were slaughtered for the wrong name, whether it's an individual or a public offering, they're kosher, and you can therefore bring the emurim on the mizbeach. And those that are eaten can be eaten, but just the owners do not fulfill their obligations because they have to bring another korban, except from chatos and pesach. Except for a korban chatos and a korban pesach, that the change of name causes it to be nullified, and it's an improper korban that cannot be eaten, as it says at the beginning of the first Mishnah in Zvochem. So the Keren Eure questions, if that's the case, why does the Rambam need a special posuk to pastel the Pesach b'shinui balam with a change of ownership? And not for its own, for those who were counting on it at the time of the shchita, because for shchita it's something. The change of ownership would seem to be, according to the Rambam, something which nullifies the korban by every action: slaughtering, receiving, bringing the mizbeach, and spraying. The Rambam isn't of the opinion like Rashi that shinu balam is only when he does it on condition to spray the dam, not for the owner. because the Rambam says the actual thought of not for the owner at the time of the slaughtering invalidates the korban. Keren Oyer therefore explains that the law of Shalolim Nuyov, not for the people who are counted on it, passes the Pesach only. He says specifically not for those who are counted on it, but those who are counted on it and not counted on it, it is kosher. And Shinu Balim by other korbanos passes when he thinks the Shem Bailim, and also for somebody else. And the difference is whether by Korban Pesach, if he at least has in mind those who are counted, it's good enough. Whereas by other korbanos, even if he has the owner in mind, it's still possible. But he says we still have to understand why is Pesach valid when he thinks of those who are counted, those who are not counted. And according to the Rambam, Shinu Balim, if he does it for both, it's also possible. We have to know the reason for it. Therefore, the Keren Oyer explains that not for the counted pasels invalidates the Pesach when he slaughtered it on condition to feed it, to feed the Pesach to someone else, and that you don't find by other korbanos. Pesach is the only korban where the main aspect of it is the eating of the owner. And as a proof he brings Tosfos, who writes in the name of the Rebbe, that when you slaughter the Pesach with a thought to feed the Pesach not to those who may eat from it or to uncircumcised, that forbids the Korban Pesach. And he cites a Tosfos, and the Tosfos writes that this is only by Zrika that comes to atone, that the thought of Zrika on the food doesn't pass the Korban. And Tosfos adds that you have to slaughter the Pesach for those who can eat it is a special law that's learned from what it says, Ish Lefi Ochloi Tochoisu Alaseh. There's a special rule, and Tochoisu has this, we'll see, translation also shall be slaughtered on the Korban, to teach you that only those who can eat it can be thought about at the time of Shlita. So from Tosfos we see the difference has to do with the eating by Pesach more so than by other korbanos. Thus, even according to the Rambam, that Shinu Balim only passes, even Shinu Balim passes by all four actions, but the machshav of Shinu Balim b'shchitas hakorban is only when he's thinking not of a change of ownership, but who is the owner of the korban, and not when he slaughters it to give the korban to someone, to have someone else eat from the korban, because the concept of eating is found only by Pesach, where it says and it says tochoisu, that you should slaughter it for those who are going to eat it. The Hilchos Chametz U'Matzah Pesach explains why, according to the Rambam, the thought for not for those who are not going to eat it or who are going to eat it makes it possible only by slaughtering, since the Pesach is set aside for eating. Therefore, the psul of Shalolim Nuyov is noyeg by shchitas Pesach and not by the spraying, because the thought of there's no thought of oichlin by Zrika. Zrika comes to a tone, and therefore has nothing to do with the thought of those who are going to eat it. So the Hilchos Chametz even defines it more so, that at the time of Shechita you have to clarify who are those who are going to eat it. The Hilchos Chametz says in his language, Shmano es Dvar Hashem, that this is something that he received from heaven, that since the Pesach it's basically to be eaten, and the slaughtering is what causes the animal to be allowed to be eaten. Therefore, the only interaction between the eaters and the avodah, the service, only takes place at the time of Shechita. And he continues, thus we see that it's clear why those who count it and don't know not to count it, when he slaughters for those who are going to eat it, even for those who are not going to eat it, the Pesach is kosher, because you can see who's going to eat it, like in Psochim, that those who are counted to eat it, they can eat it, and those who aren't allowed to eat it will not be able to eat it, because the idea of counted, when he says When you say, I'm doing it for those who are on the Pesach, whether they can eat it or not, if they can't eat it, then they're not on the Pesach. And it's invalid what he said. It has no validity, it has no meaning. The Migdash David adds to explain that the thought of change of ownership is only by other offerings when he thinks for someone else. But if he thinks not for the owner, without saying for someone else, right? Then what did you can't do that. You can't remove it. Pesach, if he says not for those who are counted on it, it also nullifies it, even when he says not for the owner. And he proves this from the Yerushalmi. We won't go into that. In the Griz, we find that Rashi, he recites Rashi, who explains the Mishnah, that Korban Pesach can only be eaten for those who are counted on it, those who are counted with the money that they paid for it, that are counted through the money that they paid to be part of the Pesach, according to the ability to eat. So the Griz says it would seem that Rashi wants to say, add something here with the purchase money, to tell you that the main concept of becoming a member by Korban Pesach is it should be bought for him his portion to eat from the Korban Pesach. But by other korbanos, you can eat from a korban, even somebody who didn't make the korban. We learned in Bava Kama, Daf Yud Gimel, shiur, an ox of a toida. It was set aside to be a korban toida, a thanks offering, that damaged. The one who was damaged eats the meat, and who was miskaper, in other words, they bring the korban, who eats the meat? The fellow who was damaged. Who gets kapor? The fellow who set it aside. So the Griz shows that the ownership of a korban was given over to the one who was eating it from the moment it was that animal gored. Whereas, while it was alive, and not after it was slaughtered for toida, because it says yuchlat ashur, because it belongs now to the other person. Even though, as far as kapora, the Torah was brought, that person has to bring thanks offering for different reasons. Still, it goes that the atonement for the person is there, while the eating is for the other person. And he brings a proof that the korban is a Torah. The mazik has to bring lachmei Torah, the bread that's brought with it. Technically, the owner of the Torah can say, "All right, you're eating it. You bring the breads, the 40 breads that go with it as well." So you see that the owner of the atones has to bring the breads. Thus, we find that by other korbanos, which it has to belong to the owner to the atone, and not that he has to have an actual monetary asset in it, just like over here by the Todah became the other person's. But by Korban Pesach, besides the fact that he has to be the owner as far as the atonement of bringing a Korban Pesach, like every other Korban, it also has to be something that he can eat. And that's a special law regarding the Posuk, regarding Korban Pesach. We learn from the Posuk, Tochoisu, he should be counted. And he brings proof from this from Kedushim and Beis. From the Posuk, Ish Lefi Ochloi Tochoisu. We learn that a person acquires the right in it, that a person actually has a portion in it, but not a cotton. It says Ish. That's one sheet that we had before. As we see, Tochoisu is a concept of ownership. He brings another proof from the Mechilta. The posing Mishku Chulachem. And in Parashat HaChodesh it says, remove yourself from Avodah Zarah and take for yourself a seh on the 10th day of the month, which was Shabbos, which was mentioned by Pesach. We learn that the animal is acquired with Mishku, with Meshicha, by moving it. And we know how a person becomes numbered on the Pesach, with money. Only the acquisition of his money gives him the right to eat it. And it's not enough that he is the one who's going to be atoned for. According to this Griz, we can understand why Shinui Ba'alim, the change of ownership which we have by every other korban, is more applicable to this spraying, which is the atonement. By the din of Sheloilem Nuya by Korban Pesach is by the shlit of the korban. For those that have a kinyan kesef in the Korban Pesach la'ochloi, So it says tochoisu, you shall be numbered. And only by shchita, because that's what permits a person to eat it, is the shchita, and therefore the concept of shaloi lo'echlov, shaloi lemnuyov, by Korban Pesach is different, that only takes place by the shchita.